Mini golf is an infinitely accessible and approachable, playful party sport that is a introduction to golf. But what if you could rogue-lite it and make it difficult and more challenging over the course of time? Well, that's what Up to Par offers. It's a roguelite mini-golf game for between 1 and 16 players, depending on which mode you go for. Solo mode is you against the courses themselves to see how far you can get and to unlock lots of new things to add into the mix. Or you can go up to 4 players locally in co-op or versus mode, or go online with up to 16, battling it out for survival. The key with Up to Par, though, is that as you progress through the game, more and more things get unlocked and put into the mix of the infinite course design. And so you're then left with a game that levels up its difficulty as you get better at the game, meaning that your challenge is always there from hole 1 straight out the bag, and you're always having to think about your next step all the time. So how does this work? In Up to Par, I'll recommend you starting off in solo mode for quite some time before you venture into anything else. Because A, this is where all of the juicy unlockables are, but it helps you get used to the game's physics. This game can be played with keyboard, mouse or controller, and it's not a press and time release of anything. It's around aiming the trajectory using the mouse controller or arrow keys, and then pressing and holding a button and releasing it to give you your power, and you'll see it going up and down on your trajectory meter as you go. This makes it really approachable, but sometimes with the singular view of courses, when you're right far back in the course, sometimes it does mean that the trajectory, easy for me to say, put your teeth in, Simon, you can kind of, it makes it quite difficult to see because sometimes the scenery gets in the way or sometimes you're not quite sure of the exact angle. And because this game has what I would call soft physics with friction, it means that the game's quite forgiving and you're not going to be ricocheting off everything absolutely crazy all of the time, but the ground does slow you down quite quickly, and getting used to the fact that this game doesn't nicely lop you into the hole. Be prepared for just having your ball dancing around the rim of the cup constantly and being very frustrated and annoyed about it until you get the fact that sometimes just going a little bit harder than what you expect will result usually in the ball going in the cup. So it takes a bit of getting used to, and yeah, just be aware that there's a learning curve on that. Up to Par takes the same approach as Curse to Golf, which is that you'll start off with a certain amount of shots, 3 at the beginning of hole 1, and if say you get the ball in the hole in 2 shots, that third shot that you has carries over to the next hole, so you've got 4 shots to get it in the hole. So it's not a par per hole, it's trying to stay under the limit of the course as a whole, with every hole in theory taking 3 shots to get to. And this is both a blessing and a curse to some degree, because some holes are very generous and you can quite conceivably get a hole in 1 on the shorter ones. Longer ones, and the further you get into the game and the more chaotic the holes become, it's really clear that 3 shots sometimes just isn't feasible unless you are absolutely pure perfection in what you do. And so you start to drop shots very quickly over time. And this is where the shop comes in. Each course contains 6 holes, and if you survive those 6 holes, you'll reach the shop. And in here you've got consumable upgrades that will last for a certain amount of tries in your current run, or you've got permanent upgrades over the course of time. And this allows you to add on additional attributes and slots for having those temporary upgrades. And those temporary upgrades are things like if you get your ball close to the hole will swallow it up. Or if you hit the pole and flag instead of the cup, it will go in. It could be that you increase the shot or power of what you're sending off. Or whenever you hit a second wall, it will then have a second wind of power and it will have a new push of energy. And that can be very, very helpful to try and get over some of those more difficult, longer holes over time. Sometimes you need to be really careful with what you wish for, though, because some of those power-ups, particularly the more powerful ones that require a lot of shots to buy, you will struggle with to keep your ball in check. So just be careful with what you buy and what you wish for. You can also unlock different ball designs as well. So you can have like a melon or a tomato or an orange or a petal ball or a paper ball. All of that is unlocked in the shop and stays with you out for all eternity in the future. Now, all of these things cost shots. So if you only just scrape by into the shop, unfortunately, you're not going to have much to spend. And you also have the second dichotomy of what it is that you spend your money on, or shots on, because you can choose these upgrades, or you can compile 2 saved shots into giving you 1 additional shot at the start of your next course, because you're going to be basically zooped back down to only having 3 shots at the beginning of hole 1 for your next course, even though it's now holes 7 to 12. This pattern continues on until you conk out and you reach game over. And this is where the course design stuff comes into play. Whilst most of the unlocks that are cosmetic or affect the actual trajectory of your shot are unlocked in the shop, anything that affects the actual courses themselves, they're unlocked by your high score. And your high score is how many holes you've completed before you reached game over. Now, it will start off with a low threshold, like try and survive 4 holes. And when you do that, you unlock the shop, for example. Or it might be that you start to unlock bumps in the path, or hills, or windmills, or rotating platforms. Then you start to unlock different course environments, and each course environment has unique mechanics to them. Plus, they'll usually have a different way how the walls are displayed. Some are more angular, and you can use those angles to ricochet off and get round corners. Others might be more rounded, and actually to try and get round lots of rounded bends, it's better to aim for the wall and just roll around it, wall running the way around the course. And each course type has its own unique properties too. So the farm one has like hurdle mounds of mud that will ricochet you off of the ground and get you air, which isn't great because that means that you can potentially fly out of the course. Whereas the water ones are like the pond and the sea. You've obviously got the water features around you, but sometimes the path gives away and is very narrow, or it could be that there's little ramps and jumps that you need to get over that haven't really been introduced until that point. All of this just means that the longer you play up to par, the more rewarding, varied, and interesting the game becomes. And that's helpful because then the longevity of this isn't just your solo mode and the progression and all of the things that you unlock. It's then those versus and co-op modes in 4-player or up to 4-player mode, taking it online in the 16-player mode, which I must say I've not had the chance to do because of the early access invitation I've had to this game to review. But I did have fun with the weekly challenges, and this puts you on a leaderboard against how quickly but also how many holes you survived as you was trying to get through the weekly challenge. And it's a procedurally generated course that sometimes might show you things that you've not unlocked yet if you're early in the game. And because quite a lot of people seem to conk out at certain stages in the game, that's where how you go as fast as possible comes in, because that can leap you up the leaderboard quite a few spots if you're super competitive. There's also unlockables attributed to all of this too, so it gives you plenty of incentive to come back week after week. And I actually had really good fun with those weekly challenges, and long may they continue. Now, I really liked Up to Par, but I do recognise that this game requires a bit of skill to see the most out of it. Partly because of the game gets more interesting the further you get and the more you unlock, and then it levels up its difficulty because all of those things that you've unlocked now make a very plain, straightforward course potentially much more difficult. So instead of it being a straight, like, green to flag putt, you've now got bumps and windmills and turnstiles in the way. That does mean that you never really catch a break with this game, and it's designed to catch you out constantly over and over and over again. And that means that it's less approachable from that party multiplayer aspect, but it has the flip side of being far more rewarding when you get it right. So if that still feels like it's the right pitch for you, then Up to Par, I think, is a great addition to the genre, and I'd recommend you picking it up. But just don't come in thinking that you're going to all pick this up immediately and absolutely blast through the game in a party mode with all of your mates straight out of the bag. This is one of those where it takes a little while to kind of get used to it before you can really exploit it for all of the joy and fun that it provides. If that's all right, go and grab it on Steam now. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.